Good day, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Prof. Marshall. I'll be chairing this session. Um, we have presenters that are going to present, and then I just need to remind the presenter with regards to time that we must stick to time, and then they will be allowed to ask questions. So I'll be the first presenter. Like I said, I'll be chairing and also presenting. I'll ask Madeline, please open my presentation. Madeline? 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 Oh, thank you so much. Today I'll be presenting, and the topic of my presentation is the traditional medicine as an alternative source for the treatment of oral diseases in humans. Next slide. Oral diseases is caused by various microorganisms such as fungi, bacteria. The most common fungal pathogens that causes oral disease is Candida albicans. It's caused oral candidiasis, known as oral thrush in the mouth. We do have treatment that are used to treat oral diseases. However, some of these drugs are very expensive and cost effective. Some of these drugs also, they do have side effects, and they're unable to combat these oral diseases. Therefore, it necessitates us the research to focus on plants, on traditional medicine, so that you can be able to derive drugs that could be used to combat oral diseases. Local people and traditional healers, they prefer this traditional medicine for the treatment of oral diseases, since it's not expensive and is easily accessible by the local community. Next. Ethnobotanical survey play a very significant role for identifying the plant species that could be used to combat oral diseases and related ailments in humans. Therefore, it is very important to focus our research on plant natural products that could be used to address the challenges that you are facing with the oral diseases, especially with the issue of root decay. We also have oral cancer and also the gum diseases that is caused by some of these pathogens. Next. The aim of the study was to investigate medicinal plants that are used by local people and traditional health practitioners to combat various diseases in humans, particularly in Vembe district of Limpopo province. The objective of the study was to identify those plants that are utilized by the local communities and traditional health practitioners. Also, to investigate the method employed where they prepare the medicine to combat these diseases. And also the mode of administration, and also the plant plants that they prefer when they prepare their medicine. Next. This map shows the study area. However, we have also documented plants that are used in Limpopo, in Capricorn local municipality. Also identify some plants in Mopani district. So those districts are residing within the Limpopo province. Next. This schematic diagram is just showing when how we prepare the plants after collecting. It's just showing how we press the plant specimen in the herbarium. We collected some for identification. We conducted ethnobotanical survey where we distributed a questionnaire. Before the survey was conducted, we have granted permission by the local authorities to conduct that survey. And then from there, we interview the local people and traditional health practitioners in various districts within Limpopo province. So we have recorded information, and then we also collected the plant material that we use for identification, and also press some specimen in the herbarium. This is showing one of the student that is preparing some dry leaf material that she's going to grind. Next. This schematic diagram, it shows how we started with the ethnobotanical survey. This is one of my former master's student, where she interviewed the local people and then the traditional healers. You can see even in the diagram in the middle where the traditional health practitioner showing the student how the leaves and explaining everything with the student, and the student is recording the information. Then from there, we did a walk with the traditional healers where they showed us some of these plants and how they collect, how they cut, if they cut the leaves, and then if they collect the roots and the bark, how do they collect this plant material. And from there you can see how we press the space, how we prepare the voucher specimen for future identification. And this is just an example of some of the plants that were dried at room temperature. The other thing that I need to highlight is that it is very important to interview the traditional health practitioner, local people, because they're more knowledgeable about the use of these plants, and then they also know how to collect some of these plants, especially with the issue of because they prefer the wild plants. Some they said they're not contaminated by the local people. Next slide, thank you. In our result, we have recorded some of these plants. This is Catharanthus roseus in Chivenda, is known as Guluwa. And then they use the roots for oral disease. So like I mentioned previously, that oral diseases, it can be toothache, root decay. The most common one is the root decay that is caused by some of these microorganisms. So what they use, they prepare the decoction, root decoction, and then some of this decoction, they gurgle it, and then it used for healing, making sure that it soothes some of the gums and so on. So some of these plants, when we check literature, they also use for this Catharanthus, it's also used for breast cancer. And then they also use these plants for other various diseases in the where we documented the information in Vembe district for indigestion and other medicinal uses that we also recorded in that area. Next slide. This is called Pelotophorum africanum, known as musese. With musese, they use the bark. If you can peel the bark and then you chew it, and then that a sort of juice coming from the bark, it has a healing, you know, in the gums and even the tooth. If the tooth is you are having a problem with the tooth toothache, and then you can chew the bark, and then it has the ability to reduce the pain, or making sure that the gums and the teeth is held, and so on. And then they also use this the bark for the treatment of sore throat, and then also they use this to stop diarrhea. If a patient is experiencing diarrhea, then when you boil and then you drink, and then it has the ability, the concoction, to stop diarrhea. Next. This is called, we have Pesia Americana, and then you know that is an avocado tree. So with the avocado tree, they also use the leaves. Then if the pain is painful, they use the decoctions. And then also for the seeds, they also, it has another medicinal uses. And then the seeds of the avocado, they also use it to treat ulcer. Next slide. This is a diagram, but like I mentioned previously, that we conducted the study from various districts. So this in Vembe district, what you recorded is that mostly they use the roots and the bark, but in Mopani they use the roots, and then in Capricorn they use is a combination for the plants that they use for oral disease. It depends on the type of the oral disease that you are talking about. If it is toothache, and then, or is it the gum, or is any another disease caused by these microorganisms. Next. In conclusion, the local people and traditional health practitioners, they've been using medicinal plants for quite some times for the treatment of oral diseases and related ailments. However, some of these plants have not been documented and recorded, and then we still need to record some of these plants, because this is an ongoing project. This is an ongoing project where we're still recording the plants that are used for oral diseases and related ailments. So it's also important to do another biological activity against these microorganisms that are causing oral diseases. And then we're still going to investigate further. For today's presentation, I was focusing mostly on the traditional use of these plants for the treatment of oral diseases. Next slide. I would like to thank my students for conducting the surveys and making sure that they're recording the result and so on. I'm so grateful to them, and also the traditional health practitioner and the local authority for allowing us to conduct these surveys. Next slide. Thank you for listening to my presentation. There's a question where it says, in your experience, where all traditional healers have to be part of the study and share their knowledge willingly, or were some of them reluctant to be involved? So here, some of the traditional healers, they were not willing to participate at all. Some we had to pay money for a certain amount for them to share with us their knowledge. But what we did, sometimes you just to be patient with them. You go today, they don't want to share information, and then you go tomorrow, and then they don't want to. But some they gave us information, some they didn't, others we paid. I think I've answered the question. Any other questions? Any other question? Any other question? We don't have any other question. Thank you for listening to my presentation. I'll call the next presenter. Our next presenter is Masonto N. Can you please upload your presentation? Masonto N, are you joining us? Our next presenter is Masonto N, and will be presenting on an overview of South African SMEs' contribution to the expanding global cosmeceutical market. The stage is yours. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Thank you so much. As it has already been said, this presentation will focus on some of an overview of looking at what some of the South African SMEs have contributed to within the expanding global cosmeceutical market. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but you need to proceed to your next slide.
I am. Is it not proceeding?
No. If you can please press on the presentation itself, the PowerPoint presentation, not on Remo.
Okay, let me just stop sharing. Are you able to see? Is it okay now?
There we go. It's moving across.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes, I'll just be looking at some of the SMEs have put in have added to the expanding global cosmeceutical market. So the cosmetic industry generates billions of dollars annually as new advanced and specialized products enter the market. A recent global market analysis conducted by Data Bridge Market Research projected a 5.8 compound annual growth rate that is forecasted for a period of 2022 to 2029, which suggests that the market value of these cosmetics is expected to reach over $370 million by 2029. Several factors have been identified that are driving the growth of global cosmetic market industry, such as the rising awareness of skincare routine, innovative product branding, and advertising strategies. The development of sustainable cosmetics is another major contributing factor to the growth market. The growing awareness of the side effects that are attributed to synthetic chemicals is causing major restraint in the cosmetic market growth. This is due to the increasing movement across cosmetics for transparency and traceability of use in products. So in the main cosmetic market contributors, they are segregated into the North America, Europe, Asia Pacific, as well as Latin America, Middle East, and Africa. According to the market analysis presented by L'Oreal in 2016, the market is witnessing fast growth in Asia Pacific and North America with a 37% increase and a 25% growth that has been attributed to the increasing demand from the rising youth population in key economies such as the US, Mexico, China, and India. The demand for cosmetics is huge in these countries due to the presence of major cosmetic market players such as L'Oreal, Estée Lauder, Revlon, Unilever, amongst others. And from the analysis, Africa and the Middle East accounted for the least market shares of 3%. However, the regions considered as growth market. So the global beauty market has seen major changes that are reflected in the economic, social, and cultural transformation. As the ideology of beauty changes from glamour towards youthful and beauty lifestyle, consumers are shifting their focus into purchasing cosmetic products that promote emotional and mental well-being, considered as self-care products. The lifestyle change of consumers has greatly influenced this cosmetic industry, leading to the demand of products with active ingredients that are sourced from the nature. As such, the organic cosmetics market growth rate was projected at 9.8 for a period of 2021, based on the analysis that is presented by Data Bridge Market Research. And several factors have been associated with such a high growth rate, and these include the increasing awareness amongst the consumers of chemical presence in the cosmetics and their impact on skin, the growing levels of expenditure on health and hygiene products, rising number of working population across the globe, supportive government policy, and increasing penetration of internet and growth of the e-commerce sector. Also, an increasing disposable income along with improved standard of living, the change in consumer behavior and presence and preference towards buying cosmetics from online platforms are expected to contribute to the growth of the organic cosmetic market in the projected time frame. So the cosmetic beauty industry shares are made up of 5 business segments that include the skin, hair, makeup, fragrances, and toiletries. Skin and hair care are the major product categories. Skin care categories is driven by various skin problems, anti-aging, and the need for UV protection. The rising demand for organic, herbal, and natural beauty products has created growth opportunity for manufacturers to innovate and develop new products in accordance with consumer preference. The African continent has not been spared from these global shifts to natural cosmetic products. The beauty and personal care market in Africa is estimated to grow by $1.26 billion in the period of 2021 to 2025, progressing at a 2% growth rate during the forecasted period. Majority of the cosmetic industry, which accounts for 53%, is concentrated in South Africa. The South African cosmetics and personal care product market is projected to reach 6.62% growth rate during the period of 2021 to 2026. Additionally, natural and organic personal care products as well as cosmetic products have witnessed an increase in consumer preference. Some of the major personal and cosmetic companies operating in the country are Nivea, Clinique, Garnier, Dove, amongst others. The shift in preference towards organic and natural beauty products by different generations, particularly in European, North American, and Asian countries, is expected to drive the market. The millennials and Gen Z are driving the clean beauty market with their purchasing power and their open-mindedness to international beauty standards. Furthermore, the millennials and Gen Z generation have drastically revolutionized the cosmetic industry through online shopping in different avenues. Such trends in consumer behavior have been brought by the influence of social media, as social networks play a critical role in shaping consumer opinions, influencing attitudes and purchasing decisions. The surge in online shopping in South Africa, which has doubled in 2020, has contributed to consumers' inclination towards natural beauty products. The movement towards natural skin and their hair care have given a rise to a number of local manufacturers that produce a wide range of skincare products like cleansers, shampoos, moisturizers, just to name a few, and all of these are made of natural ingredients. So we recently prepared a review to highlight some of the advancements that have been made in South African plant-based cosmetics, with emphasis on online local brands that are manufactured by our small, medium, and micro enterprises. This new untapped domain can be advantageous for South African plant-based cosmetic industries towards economic growth, job creation, and generation of intellectual property through the use of our ancient traditional knowledge of medicinal plants. For this study, we limited our search of South African plant-based cosmetic products to SMMEs with online websites or those products that are sold in other online directories using a simple Google search. Therefore, our products primarily promoted on social media like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram were not included in these tables. To further concentrate our search, we focus on few commercially important indigenous South African medicinal plants, as well as African plants, with some exception of few globally exploited medicinal plants for their essential oils. You'll see this in table 2. Our records show that more than 50 SMMEs are involved in the trade of various cosmetic products, with the selected plant species forming basis for the product's active ingredients. Majority of the traded products are within the skin and care and hair care categories, with skin care being the major category. The therapeutic benefits of these products involve UV protection, anti-aging, skin repair, anti-hyperpigmentation, just to name a few. Now, these therapeutic products linked to the product have been scientifically studied and proven due to the interest of selected medicinal plants locally and internationally in phytopharmaceuticals. For instance, a number of cosmetic products incorporate aloe ingredient, which is used in the treatment of burns and acne. Rooibos and honeybush have high antioxidant levels that help in repair of damaged skin. And the essential oils have been shown to help treat various skin care issues such as stretch mark, appearance of scars, controlling signs of aging, and also just to rejuvenate the skin. In most cases, these products combine different plant ingredients for possible synergistic effect of plant extract or essential oils. The benefits of these plant extract and essential oils have taken the cosmetic world by storm, and they've become the major attractants to consumers who are interested in natural beauty. South African shopping platform, online shopping platform have been made relatively easy and has several benefits for consumers, which include the ease of finding products, price comparison, and saving time through online shopping at the comfort of one's home, which is becoming a growing trend by millennials and Gen Zs. However, since online shopping is still relatively new to a number of South African consumers, few platforms are available for consumers to browse different products and make purchases without logging on the SMME's company websites. Faithful to Nature and African Botanicals are some of the directories that make it easy for South African consumers to find different plant-based cosmetics. For instance, Faithful to Nature prides itself by offering a diverse range of body and beauty care product collection, which they consider to be green, clean, cruelty-free, and eco-conscious. And the African Botanicals is another cosmetic online directory that serves to promote and market African medicinal herbs and traditional remedies, with more than 50 plants in their directory. To promote natural and green beauty products, several of these SMME companies include a detailed description of ingredients present in the product and those that they deem as unsafe, such as silicone, preservatives, synthetic fragrances, or chemicals. Some of these products also differentiate if the product is vegan-friendly or vegetarian in order to accommodate a versatile consumer preference. Now, the success of these products stems from the long history of medicinal use in South Africa and Africa. Over the past decades, a number of research articles have highlighted some of these medicinal plants as plants of commercial value that the South African cosmetic industry can benefit from their international trade. In order for the South African natural cosmetic industry to remain relevant and profitable, more groundbreaking innovative products need to be developed. This might be possible since South Africa has a very diverse flora of medicinal plants with historical knowledge and scientific validation. Since the industry is controlled by multinational giants that prioritize the development of scientifically validated products, unlike small and medium brands with less available resources. The South African Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, together with Higher Education Research Institute, should engage in supporting SMMEs in facilitating safety testing of cosmetic products. Also, South African small business manufacturers need to work on competitive pricing and strategic planning to boost their chances of expanding into the European, American, and Asian market and competing with multinational giants in cosmetics. And in my conclusion, conservation of these medicinal plants should also be on the top of the list for SMME companies before we start losing our most valuable plants. Harvesting of medicinal plants from the wild should be prohibited for both the formal and the informal market, which so far has been very much overlooked. Companies involved in plant-based cosmetic production should establish nurseries or fields for harvesting their plant material in order for the production chain to continue for years and years to come. And with that, I'd like to thank some of the bodies that were involved, some of the people that were involved in this comprehensive review of some of the SMMEs. Thank you very much.
Is there any question? Let me check. For now, there's no question. While I'm still waiting for the question, I just have one question. We have plans of commercial value. So in your presentation, did you come across such a plans? And then if so, do these plans, like most of the communities they use it, I just want to find out if it generates income to the local community or not, except for the commercialization.
You mean the ones that have not yet been commercialized but have a potential to be commercialized?
Yes, yeah, those plans, yes.
For now, we have not looked into that, but from my understanding and from seeing so many of the papers and reviews that have been published in the past, there is actually quite a lot of plants that have such that if South Africa were to tap into some of those new plants for innovative groundbreaking work, it would actually end up leading or moving towards getting into the European, the American, and also the China, the Asian market. Based on what we are seeing with the interesting trends of the growth of natural and green cosmetic products, where consumers are very much interested in them.
Okay, thanks. Because we're behind with time, I'll take the last two. Prof. Van Wyk says, he really enjoyed your talk, but he want to know, what do you think are the main limitations, in terms of our, he said, I agree that more should be done to develop our botanical heritage. What do you think are the main limitations when you deal with the issue of botanical heritage?
I think, as you had also mentioned within your presentation, some of our traditional healers and knowledge holders are very hesitant now to give us the information as scientists, because we never come back to add value. We never come back to give back to the community. We just take things and then it ends up us as scientists putting intellectual property as our own and not adding to them. And then again, if we were to go back and work, especially some of these SMMEs, in creating jobs for their local communities and training more people who might have an interest in producing new products, maybe some of these things might help fast track our economy within the natural cosmetics industry.
Okay, in a second. Diemu Aremu, he said, how can this field be expanded further in South Africa? Within a second, just wrap up. A second.
Yes. Okay, that's going to be hard, but I'll try that. As I said, the trade and trade industry, our department has to invest a lot in this entrepreneurship, and also us as scientists have to the SMEs and people that want to come into the sphere in order to expand on it and also tap into the into the international market.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Our next presenter, thank you so much, Nkowili. Thank you so much. Our next presenter is Mbanjwa. Could you please upload your presentation? We are left behind in terms of time. We need to make sure that we catch up with time. Upload your presentation. Mbanjwa, do you have Mbanjwa? Mbanjwa is SG.
Thank you, Prof. Matlo.
Thank you, Sibone.
I'm trying to load here. But
Okay,
I've also sent it just for help from that side. I'm not sure if they had it, but just in case it is not loading on my side.
Okay, I think they're listening to you. They will try to assist. You can't open your presentation.
My presentation is open on my side. I think it's just not reflecting on the window screen.
Okay, Madeline, somebody from technical assist, Sibonelo.
Otherwise, I can share the whole screen, and the whole screen, it could show all other things, but I can continue from there if I can be allowed.
You from your screen?
Yes.
Yeah, because I thought they're listening, they can assist, but if you don't, I'll drop a message.
I can share the screen. I can share the screen if you like. Is it fine?
That's
I will
fine.
share the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Dr. Matlo. And probably as a way of introduction, and I think it's introduced there, I'm Sibonelo Mbanjwa. I work for the Department of Forest, Fisheries and Environment, but also I'm a PhD student at the University of Johannesburg under the mentorship of Professor Ben-Eric van Wyk. What I'm going to be sharing basically is a research that has been, or it's part of the outcome of the research that has been done as part of my MSc at the University of Johannesburg, which is titled An Inventory and Analysis of Medicinal Plants Use in Ikopo area of KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. Can you move to the next slide? And probably just there was just for interest's sake and being considerate of your time, I won't talk much, just sharing the historical background of the history which became famous on that long published book in 1948, Cry the Beloved Country, which is based in KwaZulu-Natal, Ikopo. And I will leave it at there so that I focus on the content for the purpose of managing time. Can I go to the next slide? That's basically the sort of shared structure of the presentation, which is share the purpose, the site location, the methodology, the research findings, and summary and conclusion. Next slide. And the reality is that the aim of this project basically was a quantitative ethnobotanical survey in the Limpopo district of KwaZulu-Natal. And the principal investigator there has a family history, family and cultural ties into that area, which is myself in that context. And the intention basically was to record and to analyze the pattern of indigenous plant use in the 3 villages in the Limpopo area of KwaZulu-Natal. And the research question that I'm trying to respond to in terms of this talk is that which species are the most popular, most commonly used for medicinal purposes in the Limpopo area? And what are the level of ethnobotanical information in the Limpopo area? And is the level of knowledge directly related to the age? That's basically is based on a certain hypothesis, that null hypothesis being that age has no effect on ethnobotanical knowledge, and the alternative hypothesis being that it does. And then the next question is, how do villages compare in terms of ethnobotanical knowledge? And then what are the main medicinal plant uses in Limpopo, and how many plant species are used in each? And basically, I think that's what this talk will try and respond to. Next slide. This basically is sort of just showing the area of Limpopo, where is it located, and probably what you see there, that's a closer view of the area, which is indicated the dominant biomes of the area, which you will see is largely grassland and savanna. And what you see on the other map, basically, is where it's located in terms in South Africa, province of KwaZulu-Natal, and then you can see there just down on the south coast of KwaZulu-Natal. That's where it's located as we move toward the Eastern Cape. And next slide. And this basically is trying to share here the methodology that was applying to this. We had about 36 participants that were used for quantitative for this study. And then basically the way in which they were chosen, we call that a snowballing method. That's where you choose people that you know, friends and families in the area, to help you identify the relevant people that can be able to respond to the study. Next slide. And again, also where to address issues of ethics on this, basically, and also to just highlight into the participant what is expected of them, and also their right, actually, they must be participating willingly, with every right to withdraw at any time. And also considering that this is a village areas, so we're to seek permission from the authorities, of which in this case it was sought from a local induna. And also, of course, ethical clearance were obtained from the University of Johannesburg as part of the requirement when we are working with communities. And what you see on the side there, basically, is part of the sample of the consent form, which is written in Zulu, basically in this case, for the purpose of the respondents, so that they will give their consent to use this research and the outcome of it for the purpose of sharing and communicating the finding of the study. Next. Thank you. And again, just here, I'm just trying to highlight the methodology further that has been after having the participant determined, and part of it, of course, was the reconnaissance phase. And also the basis, basically, because the interview was conducted on the basis of what we call a flip file with photographs of plants that are found in that specific area. And in this case, I used basically the plant file, or what we call it a flip file, which was used in Amanda, which I had to design until I make it for the purpose of focusing in Limpopo area as a study area. And I think in the map, I will indicate why I thought that file was relevant into that area in terms of close proximity between Amandawe and the Limpopo area. It will indicate that the likelihood of plant species that you find there, you are more likely to find in also Amandawe and Limpopo. As a result, we could use that, and also where to verify that all the plants that we are using before we could use them for interview are found in that area, which is what we use. And what we use on that flip file, basically with various plant species, which are about 143 plant species that were selected. And all the question that was, because we're using a matrix method as part of this study, which has basically which was published in 2011 study by Prof. Ben van Veek. And it follow a certain pattern in terms of how you ask questions. For instance, you wanted people to indicate whether they recognize the plant species they see on the picture, and also wanted to be able people to be able to name the plants, and then we also had to determine whether they know the use of that plant species. And in each of those were given certain rank or certain scores, basically. If they recognize it, then they were given a score of 1. If they not, then they are given 0. If they know the name, they are given 0. They are given 2. If they don't know the name, they were given 0. And also, if they know the use, they were given a 3. And also, if they do not know, they were given 0. And I think I will demonstrate how that has been used basically in terms of the matrix file for the purpose of analysis and understanding the species popularity. And that basically because we are using species popularity index as a tool to try and understand species popularity into that area. And next slide. This basically sort of show the sort of the format, how the outcome of just that analysis and those questions were used in terms of analysis. And this is just a sample of how it all culminates into where you see actually in each block, you will have a number which is about 4 numbers basically, with the first number indicating whether the plant was known. The second number in terms of that indicated whether, okay, first one being it was recognized, second one, can they name it? And the third one, do they know the use? And then the last one is indicating the total score, which is the calculation of the numbers in the first 3 set of numbers. And ultimately, basically, we had to use that to calculate the SPI, which is translated at the end of the column of this table as a sort of a sample. Next slide. And I think just on the analysis, basically to go straight on the analysis of that work that culminated onto that, which species were found to be more popular or best known for medicinal use in that specific area, where you could see that basically cannabis sativa in top, and you can see the top 5 basically that you could pick up there. And I've tried, can you move to the next slide just to, okay. And you can see there, basically here I've just pulled up the top 5 so that I don't waste more time trying to explain all the other plants that are there. But what I've listed on the table is top 20, and it's just the top 5 that you indicate as some of the most popular there, which is aloe vera, cannabis sativa, salmicalisum, Tetradraena riparia, and Eucharsia vanilla. And those are some of the plants basically that were most popular. That's just to show that's basically up here most popular into the area. Let's go into the next slide. And to the next slide, again, we try to determine between, because there are 3 villages that were involved into that area in Ikopo, is Ndwebu and Ekwazi and Hlogozi, and where to compare basically the species popularities between the 3 areas, and also ethnobotanical knowledge of people in the 3 areas. And you could see that from that graph, basically with Ndwebu and Ekwazi, graph has about 0.48 SPI, which is about 40% knowledge in terms of the SPI index, which indicate that basically, and in terms of ethnobotanical knowledge index, which really indicate that actually there was, in terms of medicinal plants, knowledge is diminishing into that particular area. But what you will see also in the 3rd village, which is Hlogozi, is 0.44, which is the lowest, and probably what you will see that there is a trend that in the Hlogozi, the generation was much younger in comparison to the other 2 villages. But the average of Ikopo area, which include all these 3 villages, was 0.47. And I think that picture there just show just a sample of a landscape of Ikopo area as an area. Next slide. And also what just here also again was just a reflection of individual participant ethnobotanical knowledge, basically, which is already confirmed by the previous slide. Ultimately, it culminated to an average of 0.47. And we can move to the next slide. This also slide that we created basically to also look at what are medicinal uses that were really found into that specific area. And what you see here basically is that I've put here the broader categories than individual use, because there's a broader category where I've clustered individual use, and then there will be individual uses, but which I did not explain in this context. we say analgesic. It's more like things that are related to pain, more like painkillers, and associated, and then we cluster that into analgesic. And then we have got this one that are dealing with worms. And we've got those that are dealing with worm, which is anthelmintic. And also with one that antibacterial, we look at that. And also we look at cardiovascular diseases. We look at dermatological uses. We look at ear, nose, and throat, endocrine system. And what we could pick up basically, these are just various categories of plant use that were identified to be used into that area. With the tonics being most of the plant species basically are used for tonics, and you will see there with about 77 species were used for tonics. And then you will see that what's following that is analgesic, which is about 42 species. And then you will see that gastrointestinal use is about 39 species. And basically let's just show the hierarchy, even though I did not create an order in terms of hierarchy, but you can see the medicinal uses that has got most plant species that it's used for. But also I look at the specific use categories of each as well. And I think there's sort of a correlation in terms of how many species are used and what, and for how many uses as well. Let's go to the next slide. And I've taken that work further as well to say, just based on the same categories that you have seen on the previous slide, then now I look into the specific plant species, and then we said, how many of those categories each of the plant is reflect its use, which is the diversity of use of each plant species. And then you can see that actually the plant with the most diverse use in terms of the use category, individual uses, and then you'll see cannabis sativa, you will see aloe abrosine, you see aloe solanum aquilestam, you see aloe ferox, and you see Acorus calamus. But that's sort of a rank where you can see with the plants on your left, basically they will mostly have the highest number of diversity of uses. And as you move to the right, they become lesser and lesser. And also we look at individual uses as well. And then also we arrive at the same thing. And you can see there might be a slight shift in terms of plant species that are on top in each of the categories. Next slide. This just some of the plant to just demonstrate some of those top 5 plant species. Next slide. Another thing that also we try to understand basically as part of this study, which I think came later on the start, was to just get a sense basically to what extent does age influence ethnobotanical knowledge. And that's basically, I just did a small regression analysis, which is with age against ethnobotanical knowledge. And the result basically, you get the R-squared there of 0.21. And this basically generally also confirms, which I think what you likely find in the literature, that with age, and the older generation will be expected to be more knowledgeable in terms of ethnobotanical knowledge. And that's basically is being confirmed into the study. And also, however, what you might be looking at there is if you look at the R-squared value, it indicates that it may only account for 21% in terms of this study for the variation in ethnobotanical knowledge of the participant, which generally indicate that there are all other factors actually that are not appearing in the study, neither are accounted for in terms of the botanical knowledge that we might need to fully understand to understand what influence people's knowledge in terms of ethnobotanical knowledge. So, and also what you see here, this is consistent with the finding that the village with the largest proportion of the young participants had the lowest average ethnobotanical knowledge, just on the graph that I've indicated earlier, where I've shown the graphs and the ethnobotanical knowledge per village. And then, of course, and with this graph, and that sort of correlates in terms of communicating that same message. But also, however, let me also indicate that we try to just make an assumption whether can this result be generalized, and I will say no, because what I've tried to do also is to draw from other studies that has been published by colleagues and some fellow students at University of Johannesburg who are following almost similar method, where to put into a regression analysis where you find that in some areas, for instance, you look at in Namakwa, you look at in Hantam, and then you realize that actually at some point it would indicate that edge is not a factor at all in some of those areas, which need to say we might need to still improve our knowledge into that area, and it might be area or spatial location context specific, and we need to look into that, how that, whether that does have a role or not. For some reason, I've lost control of moving my slide. Okay. And what also I've tried to do as well was to also look, just looking into the 3 villages and using homogeneity index, just to try to see if the plants that are found in the 3 villages, can you confirm the same plant species in those 3 villages? And we use what we call homogeneity index. And what you see there in that, basically, for instance, in each of the blocks, you will see here we've got Hlogozi, which is 129 species were confirmed to be found into that area. And we have about 135, Nkwazi were about 135 and 31. And here in between here, what you see between Hlogozi and Indwebu, here, well, if you look at this S, they represent for shared species between the 2 villages. And then the total, if you calculate the total of those species, 136. And this actually below HI is what we call the homogeneity index to check the similarity between those species, which we concluded at 0.96, which is about 96% similarity between the villages. And equally, we did the same between Hlogozi and Nkwazi, where we culminated into about 0.91 similarities in terms of plant species that are found into that area. And also we look between Indwebu and Nkwazi, and we came to the conclusion of similarity of about 0.94%. But we look at the overall villages, actually, then we got 0.91%. But what it does generally indicate is that these villages, they are too close to each other and they are very similar, and you expect to find almost similar species across these different villages. And also then what also wanted to see though, that even though, and there's some sort of a contrast here that is coming, this is a different picture where we're looking now at vernacular names that are used for the plant species, similar plant species that are found in the villages. And I think you could see also again there, these are total vernacular names for plant that were recorded. There was about 287 in Ndwebu, 220 in Hlogozi, 265 in Nkwazi. And again, the same principle were applied in the same way. We say Hlogozi and Ndwebu shared about 175 plant species names, vernacular names for similar plants. And also in a total of, in total, there are about 326 plant species recorded. And the similarities between the village were about 0.54, which is about 54%. And also we look between Hlogozi and Nkwazi, we accumulated into about 0.51%. And we look at Ndwebu and Nkwazi, which is about 0.53%. But the overall was 0.40% similarity, which is quite different from in terms of the species, because the high level of similarity in terms of species, but there's a wide diversity in terms of how they call and name those plants. And that's basically what this slide, what you might find the same place, and probably it confirmed the reason why in science they will say, we prefer to use scientific name for common names, and it's practically for that, so that to manage that diversity as well. Basically, just as a sort of a conclusion here, I try to cut the slide to make them as short as possible, is that what does appear basically, because this study was done in Kopo, and no work has been done in Kopo area at the Kopo area, and this was the first basically to start on to make an effort to document ethnobotanical use into the area. And what you see overall in summary is that the species popularity index is at 0.47, which is similar to values to other studies that have been compared to. And also you can see there's a clear difference between villages in terms of ethnobotanical knowledge and species popularity. And the level of ethnobotanical is relatively low, basically, in that area. And of course, that also speaks and justify a lot of argument that is put. Why do we need to do ethnobotanical studies just to build and continue to preserve the knowledge that we need as for the future generation to learn from? And what we look also in terms of, there's a slight increase in ethnobotanical with age. And again, that's basically confirming that the older the generation is more likely to be more knowledgeable than the younger generation. And what I've put there, the main uses of plants that have been recorded into the area: analgesic, cardiovascular, dermatological use, ear, nose, and throat use, gastrointestinal use, musculoskeletal use, pediatric use, trauma, reproductive system, respiratory system, tonics, and other unspecified elements. That's where people, they say, yes, we use it for medicinal purposes, but they could not be specific. What is it for? But we do use it as a mood. So also there's a high similarity of useful species between the villages, and that has been confirmed, but surprisingly, no similarities on the vernacular name that I use. And of course, we consider this study being of cultural significance to the Zulu people and the people of Ethiopia, since there's no documented list of useful plants for this area. And we are hoping, of course, as part of the effort to strengthen scientific knowledge of useful plants of the Zulu culture, and it will contribute to long-term preservation for the future generation to draw lessons from. And Chair, I think I would like to thank you and all the listeners and for allowing me to share this talk, and also to really thank my mentor here, Professor Ben-Erik van Wyk, and NRF and University of Johannesburg, and of course, fellow students that constantly challenging us, contribute ideas as we try to build our skills as students. Thank you.
Thank you, Sibonelo. Unfortunately, I'm not going to take many questions. You can drop in the chat. If there's any question, I don't see anything in the chat box. So in the meantime, can I ask you one question? All right, he's already left. I'll drop a question in the chat box. So our next presenter is Mbembe. Could you please upload your presentation? Mbembe 80, could you please upload the presentation? If there's any question, please drop in the chat box. Sibonelo will come back to you. You'll respond to your question. Our next presenter, did you join us? If Mbebe is not around, Mbele, please upload your presentation. If 18 Mbembe didn't join us, please, Mbele join us.
Mbebe is online. Antoinette, there we go.
He's online.
Yeah, just put it into slideshow.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks.
Antoinette. Antoinette, if you can just No, we see the PowerPoint, the actual PowerPoint. We don't see the slideshow. So you need to just stop your share quickly and put it into slideshow, and then we'll share again. Okay, do you have your presentation open in slideshow in front of you? You've got it? And you can't see anything else. You can only see your presentation. Okay, and you can only see your presentation, nothing else. Okay, are you on a Windows or are you on a Mac?
I'm on the Windows.
Okay, so if you have a look at the bottom of your keyboard, there's a Windows button, which is just to the left of the space bar. Hold the Windows button in. Hold the Windows button in and push the letter D. D for desktop. And you'll come back to your desktop. Push the Windows key, the Windows button on your keyboard. Push that, hold it in, and press the letter D for desktop. And then you'll come to your desktop, is that right?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay, and then open Google Chrome or Remo, where you can see us again.
Did.
Yeah. Then click share. And then there's 3 options at the top. It'll say entire screen, window, or Chrome tab. Choose window. And then you find your PowerPoint slideshow, not the one that has what you've named the file. It says PowerPoint slideshow. Choose that one and then click share. I'm just going to turn your camera off because your connectivity is dropping. Okay, Andrew, I see that your connectivity is very slow, so it's taking slow to come up. I see that you are sharing, it just hasn't come up yet. Let's give it a couple more seconds. There we go. Okay, I think you might be at the end of your presentation. So just click the arrow, click the left arrow to scroll backwards.
But I cannot see the presentation on my side.
But you must go back into your presentation now. So at the bottom where you see it says PowerPoint, just hover over the PowerPoint and you'll see one is the actual PowerPoint, one's the slideshow. Click on the slideshow and it'll come full screen on your side. Do you see it?
Yes.
Yeah. No, so you shared the PowerPoint, you haven't shared the slideshow. Try and put it into slideshow from here. I don't think it's going to work. I'm just checking whether, no, you're still sharing the PowerPoint. So you need to drop your share, you need to stop it, and then you need to reshare again. But Elaine, I wonder if you have a backup presentation for this one.
Unfortunately not.
You don't, Madeleine? So let's try again, Antoinette. So put your presentation into full screen. Is it full screen so you can see nothing else but your presentation?
Yes, it's in full screen.
Okay. Now press the Windows button and the letter D for desktop.
Okay.
Make sure you don't minimize your presentation. Your presentation needs to be in slideshow full screen. Okay. Then you've come back into Google Chrome. And you click on share. And you choose window. And then you choose the one that's not your presentation, the slideshow. There we go, well done. Now just advance, go forward one slide so we can see that's working.
I'm sorry, on my side, I cannot see, I can see the presentation. That's what I'm supposed to see, right?
Yeah, so now you won't see Remo anymore. You'll now see your presentation.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, so click advance it so we can see it's advancing.
Click what?
Click on your slideshow so we can see that it's moving forward. There we go. Okay, well done. Okay, good luck.
Thank you. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking is Antoinette Tracy Mbebe to present to you an ethno-veterinary study of medicinal plants used for the treatment and managing cattle disease in KwaZulu municipality. On my introduction, ethno-veterinary medicine is made up of a complex system of knowledge, skills, practices, and beliefs that are closely associated with animal husbandry and general animal health care. More interest has been shown recently in documenting ethno-veterinary medicine. According to Cox and Dalt 2000, indigenous medicine in South Africa interchanges with regard to the new practices emerging within local systems. Is one of the provinces with a number of communities with high reliance on indigenous medicine. One of the threats to the economic and cultural survival of rural African communities in livestock diseases. The suggested study will leverage the momentum to inform, influence, document, and catalyze the key factors of medicinal plants found in KwaZulu local municipality and the common cattle diseases they treat. Cunningham and Zondi 1991 emphasized the need for conservation measures that will ensure the survival of popular medicinal plants through possible increased cultivation, utilization of alternatives, suppliers, and a stricter enforcement to of conservation regulation. My problem statement is that in South Africa, the high cost of orthodox medicine and diseases resistant to conventional medicine makes it difficult for subsistence farmers to afford to treat livestock diseases, which leads to the increase in livestock mortality. There is a spread of knowledge on practices concerned with medicinal plants uses in South Africa, whereas very little to none of this knowledge has been documented in KwaZulu municipality for the treatment of cattle diseases. This then leads to a gap in knowledge. The aim of my study was to identify and document the medicinal plants used for the treatment of various cattle diseases in KwaZulu municipality. Now, my research which medicinal plants species are used by subsistence farmers to treat various cattle ailments in KwaZulu municipality. The second one was which cattle diseases are treated by medicinal plants in KwaZulu municipality. Now, this is a study area showing on my left the map of KwaZulu municipality with its associated or communities that are there. KwaZulu municipality is 4,786.86 kilometers squared and covers 23% of the landmass of Mpumalanga province. July is the driest month with 9 millimeters of rain, while January is the month with the highest rainfall at an average of 127 millimeters and temperature of 26.2 degrees Celsius. June experiences temperatures of about 18.4 degrees Celsius. Now, on my ethnobotanical survey, data collection, ethnobotanical survey was conducted in 4 communities of the KwaZulu municipality. Semi-structured questionnaires covered both medicinal plants and diseases that affect cattle in KwaZulu municipality on the 4 communities. Interviews were conducted face-to-face. Language that was used was Swati, which is a vernacular language for those 4 communities. Photographs of each of the plant species were captured. Voucher specimens were deposited in South African National Biodiversity Institution Center for further identification. Now, data analysis for my ethnobotanical survey. Data was analyzed through descriptive data and ethnobotanical indices, which are cultural important index, use value, frequency of citation. Now, cultural important index was calculated by the sum of the number of participants who mentioned the use of each plant species, divided by the total number of participants. Use value of a species is a measure of the relative importance of how the species is known locally. Now, the frequency of citation is a numerical representation of the percentage frequency of citation for a single plant species by the participants. So now on the results and discussions, during the survey, 50 people were interviewed in 4 communities of the Nkomazi local municipality. Table 1 shows the socio-demographic information of participants. So now this table is not complete. I had to crop it, but I'll explain what's depicted. Participants included farmers, herders, traditional health practitioners, and cattle owners. Out of 50 interviewees, only 10 were males. This was due to that most of the agricultural practices in Nkomazi local municipality are under the command of males. Majority of the interviewees, which is 21 there underage, were above 30 years. All the participants had a mean average of 49.42, and the individuals with knowledge about ethnoveterinary medicine ranged from about 20 to 60 years of age. About 28 participants were married. Majority of the participants, which are 20 underneath the educational level there, out of 50 had only secondary level of education. Sorry. The plants used as ethnoveterinary medicine. The current study documented 23 plants from 15 families. Table 2 shows the medicinal plants used for the treatment of cattle disease in Nkomazi local municipality, Mpumalanga province, South Africa. So also this table is not complete, just like I've mentioned, I have 23 plants, but I'll just summarize the ones that are depicted. The present data again was presented through descriptive data and ethnobotanical indices, whereby the first medicinal plant they called Citrus quadrangularis, Euphorbia, which is the second one, Euphorbia culuparis, and Phragmites australis, Acacia mensi, were the most cited medicinal plants respectively. Citrus quadrangularis with 0.64 and Euphorbia cupularis with 0.42, had the highest use value, as the table depicts there. Now this slide just shows the plants that I said they were highly cited. So figure 2 is the Citrus quadrangularis, figure 3 is the Euphorbia cupularis, figure 4 is the Acacia mensi. Now this graph represents the families of the medicinal plant species to treat and manage cattle diseases in Nkomazi local municipality. So about 15 families were used for the treatment of cattle in Nkomazi local municipality. The plant families with high number of species were Leguminosae with a total of 4 plants, as well as Poaceae with 3 plants, Xanthochiaceae, Asteraceae, and Euphorbiaceae with 2 plants each. Other scholars affirm that Leguminosae has many plant species that are used for ethnoveterinary medicine in different areas. Also, this graph shows the distribution of diseases affecting cattle in Nkomazi local municipality, South Africa. So during the survey, of Nkomazi local municipality were affected mostly by maggots. As you see on the graph there, they reached up to 30%, and they were treated mostly by Citrus quadrangularis, which is the medicinal plants that I highlighted that it was highly cited as usage for remedies, followed by poor eyesight, which is 27% there, treated by Euphorbia cupularis. Other diseases mentioned during the interview included your infertility in bulls, retained placenta, dystocia, and many more, as the graph depicts there. Of all the participants, 16% mentioned diarrhea as the third most prevalent disease within the communities. Other researchers also found that diarrhea is common in cattle and is triggered by intestinal worms. Information mentioned by participants participants mentioned also other diseases which were classified under inflammations, just like your wounds at 12%, broken bones at 1%, snake bites at 8%, and they were also treated using the the medicinal plants, which is Ficus quadrangularis. This slide represents the pie charts of plant parts, methods of administration of medicinal plants, method of preparation. So figure 7 is plant parts used to treat and manage cattle diseases in Commons local municipality. So the most frequently used plant parts were stem at 40%, bark at 16%, and leaves at 15%, while flower was the least used plant organ at 1%. Leaves were mostly said to be used more by other scholars because they were perceived as easily renewable sources from the medicinal plant. So figure 8, it's the methods of preparation of the medicinal plant species to treat and manage cattle diseases in Komazi local municipality. So first and foremost, the base or water was used as an extraction solvent to prepare majority of the plant remedies. Common methods of preparation were your poultice at 62%, decoction at 22%, maceration at 11%, and infusion at 5%. Poultices were created by crushing or chopping herbs into a pulp form and adding water to make a paste. Like, for instance, the participants reported mostly that Ficus quadrangularis is the bark of the plant and paste on the cattle that has the wound or those maggots. Maceration involves powdering the plant remedies, then pouring water and allowing it to stand. Decoction were prepared by boiling the plant material in water for a certain period of time. So infusion were prepared by soaking the plant material overnight. To add on the medicinal plants that I've spoken about and their preparation modes of, oh, sorry, I just forgot to explain the figure 9. So figure 9 is the methods of administering medicinal plant species that treat and manage cattle diseases in Komazi local municipality. So forms of medicinal administration included your oral at 64%, topical at 27%, and bathing at 9%. Water-based remedies were administered orally with the aid of beverage bottles. Skin conditions such as wounds, cuts, meagles, and sores were treated by directly applying a meshed plant like your, again, Ficus quadrangularis, aerial parts directly to the infected area as poultice. For eye infection, plants like Euphorbia cupillaris are cut open and squeezed to release a milky sap, which is then applied topically on the nerve outside the eye. So I heard that if you apply this one directly into the eye, you damage the eye for good because the plant is considered also dangerous. So moving on to other comments that participants made, they revealed that salt was mixed with other plants to treat these different diseases, including gastrointestinal diseases. For example, some farmers added salt to alio marlotti infusions to treat diarrhea and gall sickness. The use of salt by the Venda and Tswana people was also reported by Luseba and Chisikwawe, 2013. Other farmers mentioned the use of Jay's fruit as a tick repellent and petrol for wound disinfection after they have administered the medicinal plants such as, again, Ficus quadrangularis. Now, on the summary and conclusion, this study indicates that a wide range of remedies are used by farmers and herders for the treatment of several complications and problems associated with cattle issues. The survey revealed that 23 plants from 15 families were used as source of natural base treatment for various cattle ailments in KwaZulu municipality. Women and young people possess less knowledge about ethnoveterinary medicine, as also repeated by Kunoana et al. 2019. This was also due to urbanization performed by younger people seeking for job opportunities, hence the importance to document ethnoveterinary medicine whilst still available. The Leguminosae family showed to consist of most plants belonging to it, which reveals the rich biodiversity of plants useful for treating livestock diseases amongst KwaZulu municipality. Asefa in Bahiru 2018 affirmed that Leguminosae has many plant species that are used for ethnoveterinary purposes. There is, however, a need for scientific evaluation such as antimicrobial activities to prove the empirical use of these plants in the improvement of cattle diseases, as well as validating their traditional to prove the empirical use of these plants in the improvement of cattle disease, as well as validating their traditional use. This is a couple of references that I used for my presentation and my work. Acknowledgement, I would like to thank my supervisors, Prof. Mbeng, Dr. Terence, and Tsepiso Ndlovu for all the help and encouragement to continue doing my work. Also NRF for the funding, SAAB for allowing me to send the plans for further identification, and the school for the opportunity. Thank you.
Switching your camera on to speak to Antoinette. Prof. Mahlo. I'm not sure if she has lost signal. Maybe the next speaker would like Antoinette. I'm not too sure. I think what we'll do is maybe need to go to the next speaker, and if there are any questions that pop up. Jackie?
Leanne, thanks. There's one question. I think this came up with this session now. What was the reason for the different male-female ratio of the participants? Were more women not willing to participate?
Sorry, can you just repeat the question?
What was the reason for the different male to female ratio of the participants? Were more women not willing to participate?
Not necessarily that more women were not willing to participate, but back at the rural communities, usually herding cattle is regarded as a man's job because it requires a lot of effort taking the cattle to the field for grazing and coming back. So most women usually stay home and do household chores. So most of them explained it that way to me when I also raised the same question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to call on the next speaker. The next speaker. Mbole. The Bochle. Thank you. Here we go. Your presentation is up. You can proceed. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you and we can see your presentation. Just move
Okay,
it forward
thank you.
one slide so we can see
Okay.
it moving.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, good luck.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is nwu-pukke, as introduced, and today I'll be sharing you part of my project, which evaluated the in vitro antioxidant, the anti-inflammatory, as well as the wound healing activity of a polyherbal extract that is made from plants Pentanisia prunelloides, as well as plant Dicoma anomala. This is how my presentation will be outlined for today. So first thing that we need to understand is that there is a growing concern globally over chronic wounds, which cost the lives of those affected. It can be either financially, emotionally, as well as physically. And South Africa is not an exception to this. The problem that we have in South Africa is that the prevalence of chronic wound is not properly documented. Hence, according to recent publication by PACA, the issue of chronic wounds in our country is an overlooked burden. However, as much as the prevalence of chronic wound is not properly documented in our country, there is a significant amount of literature that exists pointing out that we are indeed facing a high issue of chronic wound. This includes data from diabetic statistic, which includes the diabetic foot ulcers. It can be data from the old age related chronic wounds. It can be data from the burn wounds as well as the chronic wounds. And most importantly, South Africa has a high number of people that are living with HIV. And it has been proven scientifically that HIV patients are at high risk of developing diabetes as well as chronic wounds. And lastly, we are the largest supporters of the antiretroviral treatment in the whole world. And again, it has been discovered by science that ARVs do inhibit the process of wound healing. So now there are so many role players that are involved in exacerbated response, exacerbated anti-inflammatory response in chronic wounds. To name a few that I'm going to focus on today is the enzyme xanthine oxidase, where a high uric acid production is implicated in causing oxidative stress. Secondly, the enzyme lipoxygenase, where abnormal production of leukotrienes that are produced by this enzyme pathway are also involved or implicated in oxidative stress. And lastly, we have enzyme cyclooxygenase, which has cyclooxygenase 1 as well as cyclooxygenase 2. So according to literature, where there is abnormal production of prostanoids by these enzymes, it also contributes to oxidative stress. Hence, there is exacerbated inflammatory response in non-healing wounds. So we have a number of anti-steroid, anti-inflammatory drugs. A typical example that we are going to use in this case is aspirin. Aspirin blocks the activity of the COX-1 activity as well as the COX-2 activity. However, the fact that it blocks the COX-1 activity has been implicated in a number of side effects or serious complications during the wound healing process. Hence, according to literature, for effective anti-inflammatory activity that doesn't compromise or doesn't come with complications, there should only be a blockage of the COX-2 activity without blocking the activity of the COX-1 enzyme. Another problem that we have in this chronic wound crisis is that the available conventional wound treatment are expensive, and so many people use plants as an alternative. So as much as South Africa is endowed with flora of medicinal plant important that is used in wound healing, however, it has been found that medicinal plant wound healing research in South Africa is indeed a neglected area. There is also evidence that we have from our unpublished work that we did, where we compiled an inventory of 531 plant species from South African original that are used for wound healing. And from the 531 plant species, we were able to study the percentage of the scientific studies that you see there from the table to determine which pharmacologically activity have been studied and which not still needs to be explored. So according to the result that we got is that the wound healing activity is indeed a neglected area, since only 31 plant species out of the 531 were explored for their ability to promote wound healing. It can be either in vitro or in vivo. On top of this, we were able to compile an inventory of 25 plant combinations that are also used in wound healing. However, in this plant combination, it was also evident that none of them were explored for their ability as wound healing agents. So among the 25 plant species, plant combination that we compiled, there is one that we decided to exploit, which is a combination that is made from Pentanisia prunelloides as well as Dicoma anomala. So the combination of these two plants is used as an ointment for boils and abscesses. However, as much as it is used widely in South Africa, there is still no literature that exists to prove its use as an antioxidant, an anti-inflammatory, as well as a wound healing agent. Hence, the aim of this study was to evaluate the effect of this plant combination as an antioxidant, an anti-inflammatory, and a wound healing agent in vitro. This was accomplished by quantifying firstly the polyphenols of this plant combination and further evaluating the antioxidant ability of this polyherbal extract. Secondly, we evaluated the extract ability to inhibit enzyme xanthine oxidase as well as cyclooxygenase 2. Thirdly, we evaluated the potential of this polyherbal extract in protecting, or rather preserving, the activity of COX-1, which according to literature should be protected so that those complications that are attached to aspirin blocking COX-1 do not appear when during the inflammation. So lastly was to measure the influence of this extract in promoting cell migration as well as closure of the artificial scratch wound assay. That is where now we want to see whether the plant, the polyherbal extract, since it's used in wound healing, can it really promote cell migrating and closing that artificial wound that we had created. So this was accomplished by firstly extracting equal quantities of the dry material of these two plant extracts in water as well as acetone, meaning at the end of the day we ended up having a water extract as well as an acetone extract. So dried could extracts of this polyherbal extract were further studied for the in vitro antioxidant activity. But firstly, we quantified the total phenolic, the flavonoid, as well as the total proanthocyanidins of the polyherbal extracts. Then we did the in vitro antioxidant activity, where we used the DPPH free radical scavenging assay, secondly the nitric oxide radical scavenging assay, and thirdly we used the beta clems assay, and lastly we used the FREP assay. After the antioxidant assays, we then move to the in vitro anti-inflammatory activity, where we now investigated the activity or the behavior of this extract against enzyme xanthine oxidase, enzyme 15 lipo-oxygenase, and lastly, enzyme cyclooxygenase 1 and 2. So after the in vitro antioxidant, move to the wound healing activity, where now we want to determine whether this extract does really have an ability to promote cell migration and close the artificial wound. So what we firstly did is that we didn't test all the extracts. However, the extract that showed good activity in the antioxidant assays and good activity in the anti-inflammatory assays was then selected for further investigation in the wound healing. But before the actual wound healing assay, we needed to evaluate whether when the cells are exposed in this polyherbal extract, are they viable after 24 hours and 48, so that we make sure that these cells that we are going to be working on are still active, they are still healthy, and they are still metabolically active. And this was done through an adenosine triphosphate assay, which quantifies the amount of ATP that is leaked into the media. After the cell viability, we then tested the cytotoxicity of the extract towards the cell. Is the extract toxic toward the cells? Then if it's not toxic towards the cell and it has a good cell viability, now that is when we moved to the actual experiment of the wound healing assay, which is the scratch assay. In the scratch assay, that is when now we are going to create a scratch, and after creating a scratch from 0 hours to 24 to 48 hours, we measure the migration of the cell towards the center of the scratch assay, with an aim of being able to evaluate whether it does really promote wound healing or not. So the data from all of these assays was processed using the Microsoft Excel software. Significant means were sorted using the Wineway ANOVA, using the GraphPad Prism. Significant difference between means were then compared using the Dunnett comparison test. Results were expressed in mean plus or minus standard deviation of 3 replicates, and the assays were all repeated twice. So coming to the total polyphenol content, which is your total phenolics, flavonoid, and total condensed tannins, we were able to see that the polyherbal extract actually has a high percentage of total flavonoids, followed by total proanthocyanidins, and lastly, followed by the total phenolics. In the in vitro antioxidant assay, we were able to see that the acetone extract displayed the lowest IC50, which showed that it is more active when it is compared to standard BHT as well as ascorbic acid. Moving to the nitric oxide assay, the water extract was the most active extract when compared to both our standard BHT and ascorbic acid, as it displayed the lowest IC50 of 0.22. Moving to the beta clams, which measures the antioxidant ability of the extract, it can be seen that the acetone extract had higher antioxidant activity compared to the water extract. However, it did not show a higher activity compared to BHT. Ascorbic acid did show poor activity because of its that it doesn't, the compounds of the ascorbic acid are not that active in the beta clams assay, and that is explained better by the paradox theory. Moving further to the last assay, which was the FREP, it can be seen that none of this extract between the acetone and the water extract displayed good activity compared to the BHT as well as the ascorbic acid. Moving further to the anti-inflammatory activity, it can be seen that the acetone and the water extract did have activity against the xanthine oxidates. However, when you look at the acetone extract, it can be seen that that IC50 is comparable to that one of quercetin, which is 101.65. However, the water extract displayed significant high activity against this enzyme, meaning it has the ability, both actually have ability to block the high production of uric acid that is caused by the pathway of this enzyme. Moving to the lipo-oxygenate, it can be seen that although the water extracts didn't show good activity against this enzyme, however, moderate activity of 8.34 was displayed by this extract. Going further to the cyclooxygenase 1, remember the cyclooxygenase 1 for effective treatment of inflammation, chronic inflammation in chronic wounds, there should be at least moderate, or the extract should be able to allow the activity of this COX-1 so that those complications, they are not there. So when you look at the acetone and the water extract, it can be seen that both of them, although the acetone showed moderate and the water extract showed good activity, but both of them can be seen that although they block the COX-1, but they do allow the activity of the COX-1. Moving further to the COX-2, it can be seen that only the acetone extract was able to significantly inhibit. Remember, for effective anti-inflammatory activity, there needs to be complete blockage of the COX-2 enzyme, and that is what the acetone extract did. And you can see from the selective index, which is calculated by dividing COX-1 value over COX-2, it can be seen that the acetone extract is a selective COX-2 inhibitor, meaning it inhibits mostly COX-2 and doesn't inhibit the activity or the action of the COX-1 enzyme. Moving to cell viability at 24 as well as 48 hours, it can be seen that at 24 hours, all the extracts showed cell viability, meaning those cells that were treated with the extract were still viable. However, remember, in this case, it's only the 50 micro, the acetone extract, because the acetone extract display good antioxidant activity as well as anti-inflammatory activity. It was then chosen for the in vitro wound healing study. So here it can be seen that it's good for the cells. It doesn't cause any damage, even after 24 hours, except for the concentration at 20. No, all of them were displayed good cell viability. However, at concentration 6.25, 12.5, as well as 50, there is even more good or excellent cell viability and as well as proliferation by the cells that were exposed to those concentrations. Coming to the cytotoxicity. Yes?
You need to please start wrapping up. Your time is up.
Okay. Coming to the cytotoxicity, it can be seen that the extract was still safe for the cell in both 24 hours as well as 40 hours. Coming to the last assay, which is the migration as well as the proliferation activity, it can be seen that when you calculated the migration rate as well as the wound closure and compared the 50 microgram to that of untreated control that had semaram, it can be seen that still the acetone extract showed good migration rates as well as wound closure, and it can be seen from the micrograph that there was complete wound closure after 48 hours. After the wound, the in vitro wound scratch assay, the extract was still good, or it didn't have toxicity towards the cell. Coming to the conclusion, the study does provide scientific base for the application of these extracts in wound healing. Secondly, the acetone polyherbal extract is an excellent candidate for wound care product development due to its observed antioxidant, anti-inflammatory activity, as well as excellent proliferation as well as migration rate potential that were displayed due to the presence of the quantified polyphenols. However, further research is needed to identify and isolate the active principles within the polyherbal extract. I would like to acknowledge this organization as well as the listed people. I thank you.
Thank you, Nobuhle. Thank you for a good presentation. It's time for question. 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 It's time.
Mama, can you please log out of your other device? You have two devices open.
How is it now? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I don't experience this.
You've got two devices open. That's why it's echoing. So you've got to log off. You've got to close one device. In the meantime, can I ask the question? Nobuhle, can you see the question on the Q&A?
I can't. Are there any questions? I think the last person to comment was at 3:13 p.m. and I can't see any other questions after it.
So it's under Q&A. It says that the
okay.
presentation is informative.
Okay.
Could you kindly confirm if you have the information whether
yes, I can see it.
Formulations could be used to treat serious wounds such as punctures and burns?
I think from what I've presented today, it is very clear that yes, there is a possibility of polyherbal extracts other than the one that I've investigated today. But if they are further investigated, they can also be used in the application of wounds. Other than that, the people used it for so many years and they're still using it even today. So yes, polyherbal extracts do stand a chance as wound healing agents.
Thank you. We seem to have unfortunately lost our chair. I'm just trying to see if I can get her back with us. No, she's dropped again. There's no other question. So I'm going to say thank you on behalf of the chair. And we're going to call up our last speaker, which is Mhlongo. Lloyd, are you there? Lloyd, if you could please activate your, there we go. And if you could share your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, we are running slightly late in this session, so we will have a shorter break because we were due to come back from break at 20 past. So session 2 will still begin at 20 past. And we'll have a quick 5-minute break between Lloyd's talk and our next talk. Okay. Thank you, Lloyd. If you can please put it into presentation, so full screen. There we go. Okay.
Can you see it now?
Can you advance your slide so we can see it's going forward?
Yeah.
There we go. Thank you. Good luck.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lloyd Mhlongo. I am a UJ PhD student. I'm going to be presenting a talk on the ethnobotany of the Zulu ritual plants recorded in Amandawi, Natal, as part of my PhD findings. And the study is supervised by Professor Ben Eric van Wyk. So first things first, I would like to define what ritual plants are. So traditionally, plants used in this application are traditionally used for psychological support as well as various other spiritual aspects. They also form an integral part of a holistic Zulu healing system. So in other words, they complement medicinal uses. So these uses are perceived as being irrational by people who do not understand the culture or who do not understand what it is and what is actually happening. And hence, they are usually termed magic plants. Because the term magic has got no place in science, so we decided we would just sum them up and refer to them as ritual plants, just for scientific purposes. So these two groups, these plant species were then further classified into two major groups based on their uses. They're classified into psychological and spiritual applications. So psychological is mainly characterized by charms, trying to achieve what is seemingly the impossible or supernatural things. Whereas spiritual uses are mainly for communicating with ancestors and spirits of the dead. So just a brief description of each group. Within psychological uses, there's 4 areas of use. One is positive charms. These charms are mainly used for attaining love, life advancement, and other socially acceptable deeds. Whereas negative charms are mainly based on hate, occult, witchcraft, and other bad stuff. Protective charms are normally used in very threatening situations, for example, natural phenomena like lightning and adverse weather conditions, and sometimes against the deeds of witchcraft from people. And then responsive charms are charms normally described as intelezi. This is when one, excuse me, this is when one has failed to protect themselves from evil charms, and then they will then deal with the situation in trying to eradicate or do away with those charms or neutralize themselves. On the other side, for spiritual purposes, in light of communicating with the spirits of the dead, people will always try to enhance their communication with the spirits, especially ancestors, by acquiring clarity of vision and sight in the case of divination. And in placatory pleas, people try to calm ancestors in case where they have offended them or they've gone against their will. And then moving to burials and rituals, this is when people perform different types of rituals with regards to people who have passed on, whether it's their family members or people they are related to. And then dreams. Now, in the Zulu culture and the Zulu system, dreams form a very important part in communicating with the ancestors, in which people try to get meaningful dreams or more clues on what dreams have been passed on by their ancestors. And then further on, we move to various attributes that inspire, or various plant attributes that somehow help people choose different plants for various specific uses. For example, morphological features. Color seems to be a very important factor, in which a lot of things associated with white, yellow, cream, associated with clarity, hope, and progression. And then further attributes are going to be described in the examples coming. So this study was done in an area called Amandawa, which is a coastal area in south of Durban in KwaZulu-Natal. And this is what the area looks like. And I happen to have lived in the area since birth. So this is my home, and I happen to understand the culture, the language, these practices, what I've seen firsthand. Yeah. As part of our materials and methods, a total of 37 participants with plant use knowledge were identified, and they took part in structured interviews. At the bottom are their names and their initials. To your right is an ethical clearance letter which was received from the Ethics Committee in the University of Johannesburg. Next, we move to a flip file and the matrix methods which were used as the primary tools for conducting this survey. So to your left is a typical flip file page, which typically represents different plant parts just to aid the identification when the page is presented to the participants. To your right is the matrix table, which uses the method that produces a very high quality primary data, which then makes it easy to do further or various other statistical analysis. So this method is very convenient in the way that it records and summarizes both species popularities, and their importances. And it is also very unique in a way that it also gives the level of knowledge of the community in question or people who are being interviewed. So for this study, 3 indices were used to analyze data, which is SPI, EKI, and CII. Now moving to results. In total, the total of 238 plant species were recorded in Amandawa to have different uses for ritual purposes. So what you see at the bottom are these 2 groups of use. On your left, psychological charms, and on your right are spiritual charms, and different categories of use per group. So now, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to present to you is I'll just run through several examples of plant species used in each and every category of use, and then also share with you briefly share with you some of the attributes that are perceived to produce the desired outcome for those species uses. So on our left top hand corner, we have Halimus integrifolia. Now this plant species, okay, the other thing is what you see are yellow writings in brackets. These are your relative plant species popularities, followed by cultural importance indexes, and the values on the outside denote the number of times each species was mentioned for that particular use. So Halimus integrifolia is a very popular Zulu plant used for washing. So it is in this regard that people regard the presence of saponins as a cleansing factor. So this is how people purify themselves in order to attract luck and to attract good fortunes. So the thinking behind this is that people will only stand a better chance to receive luck when they are pure, when they are clean. Another interesting example is Comilana ecloniana, which is used for as love potion, commonly called isgezo. Now, this application is normally used by females in events where a female feels like they're not being loved by their partner. First thing that usually comes to mind is they are impure and they don't give good sex. So what they will do is they will usually cleanse themselves, especially their genital parts. But now what is interesting about this plant species used as isgezo most of them are found in wetland habitats, especially permanent wetlands. So what happens here is wetlands and running water is associated with cleansing and purity. So this is when they aim to purify themselves. Next, we move to protective charms. Interesting species here are Lipa javanica and Pesia bipinnatifida. Now, within these two plant species, there's a number of plant species that are used as a protective charm against lightning, simply because they have they possess a very strong scent, just like Lipa javanica. So some of them will be crushed or rubbed against the body, or some of them will be burnt. So the smoke diffuses and the scent diffuses. And then a number of other plants possess spines, and this is believed to be a deterring feature against lightning. The other interesting feature with plants used against lightning is a very strong contrast between the top side and the bottom side of the leaf, where a very strong leaf bicoloration. And some say when these plants flap against the wind, they resemble lightning. It's like lightning flashing. So I think it is this behavior and this morphological feature that make people believe that this can chase away lightning. Now moving to negative charms. Now these charms are, like as I've said before, they are performed with the intention of occult, witchcraft, and other bad intentions, and they're usually done with very high level of they're done in secrets, and sometimes usually after sunset. Now, an interesting plant species here is Acrylocarpus natalis, which is called umabopa in Zulu. Now, if you've seen this plant in the wild, it is a very woody climber that climbs over other trees, and it has twines. These woody twines can twine themselves against other plants to a point where they can even kill them. Now, it is this feature that is believed that when one is especially involved in court cases or other disputes, this ability has the power to make your opponent tongue-tied, such a way that they will not be able to speak, or it will impair their speech. In that way, they will then fail to explain themselves against the judge and then lose the case. Another interesting species is Mimosa pudica. So in this species, if you've seen it, if you touch the species, it wilts. This behavior is linked with causing impotency when one is suspicious that their partner is cheating. So the belief is that the people engaged in that relationship or in a sexual activity, there will be no erections, basically. And then we move to responsive charms. Now, in this case, this is when the charm, especially from occult, has now manifested in one's body because they failed to protect themselves. Then people try by all means to eradicate it or to deal with it, basically. And some of the interesting species include Rapanea melanophlores, mapipa meaning to cleanse or to nurse or to deal with something. Basically, it's disaster management, in other words. So what is interesting about this plant species is that it is found in ravine habitats. Now, ravine habitats are also associated with running water, which again means purity and purifying oneself. Now, plant species, Clutia ovalis, Pesia Americana, Apuca brightata, and Drumea elata, upon contact with skin, for example, the Drumea elata and Apuca brightata, upon contact with skin, they possess a sticking sensation from the bulb cell, while Pesia Americana possesses stinging trichomes. That again, when it touches the flesh of the body, one will experience stinging. while Clutia root bark is administered to a person to snuff. This causes extreme sneezing. This is believed to chase away the evil that has manifested in one's body. So all those top species are supposed to eradicate or chase away or cleanse off the evil spirits. And then moving on to spiritual uses. Start off with enhancing. Hello?
Hi, sorry to disturb. We need to start wrapping up, please. Your 15 minutes is through.
Is it? Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right, thank you. So with spiritual uses, the main aim is to enhance your communication with the ancestors. So one way to do that is to enhance your vision and all of that. So plant species, the interesting plant species used here is Mysticidum capense. This is taken from its growth form. It comes on the tree and shoots up the stem. And then we move to other uses. Now, these plant species are also used for repentance and for dream clarification. So again, the thinking here is that one has got to be pure to communicate with the ancestors. Now, interesting features here is that these plants are found in ravine areas and they possess color white. Now, with burials, it's quite interesting that plant species used to transport spirits of the dead possess hooked thorns, whereas those that are used to relocate spirits possess scent. Now, the plant species with the highest number of uses is Vangera faster, which has 17 individual uses, and it's also found in 8 different use categories. So moving on to level of knowledge. At the bottom are participants with their arranged according to their ages, from the youngest to the oldest. So what's interesting here is that this information on ritual plants is almost even distributed across different ages. So the knowledge is still very alive in this cultural group. And then in conclusion, so the use of ritual plants is mainly based on psychology and perception. And this particular use of Zulu ethnobotany still remains very poorly documented. And with this study, we got a chance to give an insight into the Zulu culture that's never been done before. More than that, it also gives a hint on the principles for the reason why plants are used and why they are chosen. This study makes a very important contribution as far as the culture of the Zulu people is concerned. In closing, I want to thank Professor Ben van Wyk, the supervisor, the Inkosi of Amandawe, who is now late, Chief SD Tele, and University of Johannesburg, NRF, and SAAB for this platform. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lloyd, for a very interesting talk.
Thank
There's
you.
just a question. This is well done. Did your respondent or you have a source to confirm that the charm did work as claimed, or was it a placebo?
Well, it's mostly a placebo. Mostly a placebo, but you see, what happens is if something's been repeatedly done in an area and you tend to believe it works. And once you do it, you will then in your mind be in a stage that you're now safe or it's going to work.
Thank you, Lloyd.
Yes.
Are there any other questions before we close the session from the attendees? Okay, I think that's it. Thank you very much, Lloyd. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to go on to into a quick comfort break. As I said, session 2 has already started. Session 2, they started at 20 past. We're going to try for a quick, so let's say we start at 1:45. We ask that all presenters for the next session, please just let us know which table you're sitting at, so we can get you to the green room quickly and we can start our next session quickly. Okay, thank you everybody. See you at 1:45.